People always tell you motherhood changes you, but they never quite explain how much of yourself you give away piece by piece, until one day you look in the mirror and see someone you no longer fully recognize. My name is Eliza, and I've lived most of my life in the shadow of other people's needs. My parents, my ex-husband, society's expectations. I did everything by the book. Married young, supported my husband's ambitions, and when he suggested we adopt, because he thought it would make us look better on paper, I agreed. He never truly wanted a child. He wanted the illusion of a perfect family, the kind that sat nicely on holiday cards and impressed his colleagues. We brought home Noah when he was 7. He had a small duffel bag, a broken zipper, and eyes that had already seen too much for a boy that age. The agency said he'd been in 3 foster homes in 5 years. That night, as I helped him unpack his bag, I found a crumpled picture of a dog he once had. He didn't talk much, but he clung to that photo like it was the last thread of his world. I fell in love with him that very night. Not in the way people expect. It wasn't immediate or loud. It was quiet and consuming, like rain soaking into dry earth. I wanted to give him every ounce of warmth I had, to rewrite his story, to teach him that not all goodbyes meant the end of something worth loving. But my husband, Greg, he was distant from the beginning. When he wasn't working late, he was glued to financial news, stocks, and business calls that bled into weekends. He'd smile when necessary, pose for pictures, even kiss my cheek at charity events. But behind closed doors I was alone. Worse, I felt invisible. It didn't take long before Noah noticed. Children sense things adults try to hide. He started following me into the kitchen, helping set the table without being asked. At bedtime he'd linger in the doorway, eyes uncertain, waiting for my "good night, sweetheart." I'd hug him a little longer each time. He began to relax. He began to trust. One evening, about a year after Noah came to us, Greg looked up from his laptop and asked if we could stop trying so hard with him. "He'll be fine," he said. His voice as dispassionate as the market updates he recited daily. "He's not even ours. Don't wear yourself out." I remember sitting in silence, the weight of those words sinking into my bones. Not even ours. As if love came with a receipt. As if belonging was a transaction. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom while Noah slept in the next room. Years passed. Greg's indifference thickened like fog in our house. He stopped pretending entirely. Business trips became more frequent. I stopped waiting for him to come home. Noah, now a teenager, had become the center of my universe, though I never said it aloud. He called me Mom without hesitation by the time he was 9. By the time he was 14, he started walking me to my car in the mornings, carrying my bags, checking the oil in the engine because Greg had stopped doing even that. Once, after a particularly rough day at work, I came home to find Noah had made dinner. Pasta. Slightly overcooked, but the effort made my heart swell. He stood at the stove in his too big hoodie and smiled shyly. "Thought you could use a break," he said. I broke into tears right then and there, and he wrapped his arms around me without a word. At 15, he towered over me. He still does. Broad shoulders, deep voice, a presence that fills every room he walks into. Yet with me he's always gentle, always thoughtful. He never stopped looking at me with those eyes. Searching, cautious, loyal. And I never stopped seeing the boy who clung to a photo of a lost dog and flinched at sudden sounds. Greg's career eventually took him to another city. I didn't follow. He didn't ask me to. He left behind a hollow marriage and a signed set of divorce papers. Now it's just Noah and me in this house. The quiet is different now. Not sharp with loneliness but soft with peace. Except, there's a space between us that sometimes feels too full. A moment like last week when I tripped coming down the stairs and he caught me. Strong arms steadying me. His hand lingering on my waist a second too long. His voice low. "You okay, Mom?" The way he looked at me then. I brushed it off. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe not. Tonight, he's sitting across from me at the dinner table. His eyes meeting mine for longer than necessary. There's something in his gaze I can't name. something tender, something careful, and something more. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I realized something had shifted irrevocably between us. The kettle whistled in the kitchen, steam curling above the sink like breath in winter air. I poured hot water over tea leaves, my hands moving by habit, but my mind somewhere else, on the way he had looked at me last night, and the stillness that had followed. Like silence had spoken the words we couldn't. Noah wandered in moments later, his hair tousled from sleep, wearing the same hoodie he always wore around the house, except now it clung to him differently. He was no longer a boy trying to grow into something. He was already there. "Morning," he said, his voice rough and warm. "Morning," I replied, sliding his cup across the counter like always. But everything about the moment felt different. Thicker somehow, more weighted. He caught my wrist as I turned away. Gently. Just for a second. "Your hands are cold," he said. I froze, not from fear, not even surprise, but because his touch lingered a breath longer than it should have. I didn't pull away. He didn't let go. We both knew. We didn't speak about it. How could we? Where would we even begin? I busied myself with things that didn't need doing. Laundry, reorganizing the pantry, wiping down spotless counters. And still, I felt his presence behind me, close but never intrusive. Watching. Waiting. Feeling the same tension I carried in my chest like a second heartbeat. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside with a book, hoping the sun and breeze would distract me. But within minutes, Noah appeared at the back door, barefoot, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea and that small, knowing smile he sometimes wore when he was trying to soothe me. He sat beside me, close but not too close, and opened a novel he was pretending to read. We didn't talk for a long time. We just sat in the sun, letting the silence stretch until it became a comfort instead of a weight. I felt the warmth of him just inches away, my hand resting on the arm of the chair, his just barely brushing against it. We didn't move. Neither of us dared to. And still that space between us pulsed. That evening we cooked dinner together. It had become our weekend ritual. His way of giving back, of being part of the home I built for us. He chopped vegetables while I stirred sauce on the stove. At one point, I leaned over to check the pot and our shoulders touched, our hands bumping as he passed me the ladle. His fingers lingered again. And again. I didn't move. When we sat down to eat, I could barely taste the food. My heart was thudding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. But he didn't speak. He didn't ask. It was me who broke the quiet. "Noah," I said, setting down my fork. He looked up at me, steady, waiting. "This thing between us." I paused, struggling for the right word. "Do you feel it too?" There was no fear in his eyes. No confusion. Just that same deep, unwavering calm that had always made me feel safe. "Yes," he said simply. I should have ended it there. I should have told him it was wrong, that we couldn't go down this path, that I was the adult, the parent, his mother, that this couldn't happen. But I didn't say any of that. Because in that moment, I didn't feel like his mother. I felt like a woman who had been seen, fully, deeply, for the first time in years. And he wasn't a child. He was the man who had stood beside me when my world crumbled, the boy I had raised into someone who now held all my secrets without judgment. "No one would understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't need them to," he replied. "Just you." The room felt impossibly small, like the air had thickened around us. My chest ached, not from fear, not from shame, but from the impossible tenderness of it all. His gaze didn't stray. His hands didn't reach for me. But his words, they stayed. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't name. I thought about the life I'd lived, the sacrifices, the silence, the years of being unseen. And then I thought of him, of Noah, of everything he had become to me. Not just a son, not just family, but something else. Something I couldn't explain without unraveling everything. When I finally closed my eyes, it was to the memory of his voice. "Just you." The morning light filtered through my curtains, soft and golden. I hadn't slept much the night before, my thoughts too loud, my heart too full. But when I walked into the kitchen, the smell of fresh bread and coffee greeted me. Noah stood at the stove, humming to himself, barefoot and focused. "You're up early," I said, wrapping my sweater tighter around me. He looked over his shoulder and smiled, warm and effortless. "I thought we could get out today. Just you and me. Someplace quiet." His tone was light, but his eyes held something more. I tilted my head. "Where?" He turned off the stove and walked toward the table where a small basket sat, already half-packed. "There's this place. It's a bit of a drive, but I used to go there sometimes when I needed to think. It's peaceful. I packed lunch." He looked up at me, soft but certain. "Come with me." I hesitated for a heartbeat, but then I nodded. Yes. We drove in silence, the hum of the engine and the soft rustle of trees framing the road around us. I watched his hands on the steering wheel. Steady, confident. Not the hands of the boy I once carried through night terrors, but those of a man who knew exactly where he was going. When we turned off the main road and followed a narrow path through tall grass, my breath caught. The trees parted to reveal a clearing bathed in light. Rolling hills cradled a small lake, its waters still and glassy, mirroring the sky. Wildflowers dotted the edges like forgotten wishes. Noah parked and turned to me. "No one comes out here. It's just us." There was something in his voice that sent a shiver through me. Not fear, just awareness. We carried the basket to a patch of soft grass beneath a crooked willow tree, its branches like arms bending in the breeze. He spread a blanket, smoothed its edges, and opened the basket to reveal sandwiches wrapped in parchment, berries, sparkling water, and even a little chocolate. "You thought of everything," I said, touched by the care. He shrugged, a faint blush rising in his cheeks. "I just wanted today to be perfect." And it was. We talked, laughed, dozed beneath the sun. At one point I lay back, eyes closed, letting the warmth wash over me. I felt his hand brush mine. Not by accident. I opened my eyes and found him already watching me. There was no fear in his gaze. Just clarity. A quiet intensity that made it hard to breathe. "Why here?" I asked, my voice quieter than before. He looked toward the lake, the breeze stirring his hair. "Because it's the only place that felt big enough for what I feel." I didn't speak. Couldn't. He reached into the basket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth, a small, delicate music box. "I found this in your closet months ago. It doesn't play anymore, but I remembered you saying it was your favorite when you were little." He handed it to me like a treasure. The box was chipped at the corners, the tiny ballerina frozen mid-pirouette. I hadn't thought about it in years. "I wanted you to know that I see you," he said softly. "Not just as the person who raised me, but as a woman." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat nearly unbearable. "Noah." He took my hand then, firmly but gently, and there was nothing childish in the way he held me. It wasn't a son seeking comfort. It was a man reaching for the woman he had grown to care for with a devotion that defied explanation. "I know this is complicated," he said, his voice raw. "And I know the world wouldn't understand. But nothing about how I feel for you has ever felt wrong." My chest ached, not from fear or guilt, but from the magnitude of what we had both been quietly carrying. The truth was, I had never known love like this. Not in my marriage, not in any of the empty half-promises of the past. And now, sitting across from the boy I had once saved, I realized he had quietly saved me too. "You've always been everything," I whispered, my fingers tightening around his. "And I didn't even see it until now." He leaned in, slow and reverent, his forehead brushing mine. "You see me now." I nodded, eyes closed, the breeze moving around us like a sigh. And in that quiet clearing, with no one else in the world to judge or question, we let the moment be what it was. Honest, tender, uncontainable. Something unspoken passed between us. And nothing could pull us back. By the time the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in deep bruises of purple and gold. We had packed up our picnic and folded the blanket, reluctant to let the day go. The lake shimmered in the fading light like it knew we wouldn't be the same when we left. But when Noah turned the key in the ignition, the car only groaned in protest. Again. Nothing. He leaned back in his seat, exhaling through his teeth. Batteries dead. I stared at the dashboard, then back at him. You're sure? He tried again, as if sheer will could change the outcome. I'm sure. We both laughed, soft, disbelieving. Of course it would end this way. Today had already felt like a dream. Maybe the universe didn't want us to leave it just yet. No signal either, he added, checking his phone and showing me the screen. Blank. No bars. The road was too far to walk safely in the dark, and the clearing too remote to expect a passing car. It was just us now. The stars beginning to scatter above us, the lake turning to ink beside the trees. I guess we stay, I said, oddly calm. I'll make it comfortable, he replied immediately, already climbing out of the driver's seat and folding the back one down. There's blankets in the trunk. I packed them just in case. Just in case. I raised a brow. He shot me a look sheepish and endearing. I hoped we'd stay longer. I didn't plan this, but maybe part of me wanted more time with you. The honesty in his voice made my breath catch. My heart was already there, waiting to meet him. By the time we crawled into the back, the sky had turned velvet black, the windows a soft reflection of the night. He laid one blanket down, tucked another over our legs, and adjusted the last one around my shoulders, his fingers brushing my neck. You're freezing, he said, concern darkening his voice. I'm fine, I murmured, but my shiver betrayed me. Without asking, he shifted closer, wrapping his arms around me with that same quiet strength I had come to rely on. My head found the crook of his shoulder, and I let it. 'Cause it felt right. 'Cause I wanted it to. We didn't speak for a long time. Just the hush of wind through the trees, the occasional creak of the car as it settled into the earth. His hand rested lightly on my arm, his thumb brushing back and forth, a rhythm, a comfort, a question he hadn't spoken aloud. And then he turned his face toward mine. Softly, lowly. I lifted my eyes to his, and everything stilled. His gaze searched me, not for permission but for truth. I gave it to him in silence. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. The air between us suddenly warmed despite the chill that clung to the windows. Say stop, he whispered. But I didn't. Couldn't. Instead I closed the distance. Our lips met like we had done this 1,000 times in another life. Gentle, tentative, then certain. A kiss that wasn't just longing but recognition. Homecoming. The warmth between us spread, not rushed, not reckless. Just present, powerful, real. When we pulled away, our foreheads still touching, I whispered his name like a promise. Noah. His fingers brushed my cheek. I love you. The words didn't startle me. They didn't surprise. They had been sitting quietly in the space between us all day. I love you too, I said. We didn't talk about the world outside. Not yet. We lay together through the night. His body curled protectively around mine, our breaths sinking, the car our shelter, the darkness our cover. And though the air grew colder, we stayed warm. Because for the first time in a very long time, neither of us felt alone.